Alright friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. This YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord, but especially advanced field command and battlefield tactics. And we continue our Peasants Uprising here, right? This Peasants Uprising is a new side branch of the campaign we're running, and we have this little small sector here of territory, right? We have Varagos Castle, we have Sinopa, and of course we have Amitatis down here. Now in the optimal world here, I would like to expand our kingdom to include more cities. I have these. This is essentially a contrived campaign, and I would love to circle around and take Ataconia and Rotai. This campaign, we have ground rules that we're obeying here, and also there's not really a standard sort of margin of what you would consider a victory, right? We don't have a standard victory. I'm not going to try to conquer the entire map just because that would take like 500 episodes and probably bore you guys to an extreme. They are sieging Varagos Castle, so we're going to try to get up there. And you see this guy here, this fuck here raiding our village. We're going to destroy this guy here. Part of the way we're going to do that, to try to trap him, is to spread our units out. We're going to fan him out over an arch here, and then we're going to close in for the kill. If you've never used your units before, your battlefield units like this before, it's an excellent way to make sure that these fucks don't escape. You can see he's running for his life. He's probably heard of our reputation as a noble beheading savage. And we're closing in the net here to kill him. Oh shit. I might not have done it quite tight enough. No, they got him. They got his ass. Alright, this fucking guy here. We'll auto-resolve some of these battles, especially where we outnumber them 8-1 like this. But it is unfortunate. Look at that. We had fucking way more casualties than would have occurred had we just fought this guy on the battlefield. Fortunately, he's got some troops for us to recruit here. Took prisoners from the local village, right? He's over there raiding and taking prisoners. So we're going to arm these prisoners and fucking remind them that the Western Empire is very frequently amongst our foes. And maybe they can, you know, they can wield a mace and dash the brains out of a legionary in the next battle against the Western Empire. We are role-playing in this series, right? We are running around basically pretending like we're a bunch of peasants. We have ground rules. There are no tier 5 and 6 units allowed in our army, right? We don't allow essentially the elite noble type units in our army because these peasants don't trust them, right? These guys, they want to fight with peasants and other low-level troops, and so that's what we're effectively role-playing. If we get tier 5 and 6 units, I disband them. I send them off into the wilderness. It's already under siege, Amitatis? Jesus. Well, it's like they're popping up out of the grounds like mushrooms. What do we got here? This Valandian force, 737. You guys are way out of your neighborhood. 17 Banner Knights, 21 sharpshooters, and a bunch of... they have 18 Battanian Fiend Champs. Interesting. So it's not too strong of an army. We've certainly faced stronger, and there's just no question we're going to fight this army here. They're right in front of us. We're not going to let them starve this city out while we go handle other business. I've got to change the unit prioritization. We got it a little bit haywire. That's why we've had so many peasants in battle, like 90% peasants. Now it'll be a kind of a mix of peasants and decent troops. Decent for us, of course, is tier 4. All right. So I can't see the enemy here, but this is a nice big open battlefield here to position. We can do a number of different tactics. Our army tends to be archer heavy. So we have the 6th Corps is going to be skirmishers. I'm going to set this to about 80 guys. And the 4th and 5th, those are our primary archer divisions. And then we'll have some archers in the 8th Corps. Now I run 8 divisions. A lot of guys are kind of overwhelmed by that. And we literally have a playlist of videos, instructional videos to help you get from commanding 3-4 units to commanding all 8 with more confidence. Check that out if you're interested. It's 10 episodes and probably 4 or 5 hours of commentary on how to get better at commanding a lot of units. Lots of units give you a lot more versatility and way more tactical options, right? If you have lots of units, you can flank the enemy, you can surround the enemy, you can do all kinds of nasty things. Now the 4th I usually use is crossbow, but I don't have enough guys with shields here. You see how vulnerable their square would be? If I use the crossbow division as a square, it's just not very effective. So we just don't have the strong enough army to really use the 4th Corps like I would, or like I am in my actual full-on campaign where we're not playing with these rules. You can see the 5th Corps is archers, the 4th is crossbow, the 6th is skirmishers, and the 8th is kind of a mix of infantry and archers. The 2nd is cav, and I use my cav much more defensively than most people do in Bannerlord. I use them as shields. I use them as screens to prevent their cav from charging our units. And of course, we will use them offensively. We'll use them to hammer and anvil occasionally, but much more defensively than your typical person in Bannerlord uses their cav. The enemy's kind of setting up on this hill here, so we're going to start spreading our units out. They've got a bunch of cav kind of running our way, and so because of that, I want to get some of our archers set up so we can shoot some of these knights off their horses. I see their crossbow divisions kind of heading up the hill there. We can try some bad javelin throws here. Sometimes my skill gets worse the more I practice. Kill this bitch with the flag. Yeah, you're on the ground, lady. Have a javelin. Alright, so their force is actually right over the ridge there. I would say they're attempting a reverse slope defense, except I've never seen the AI actually do that. It's a pretty complicated tactic, pretty advanced concept, and it's pretty unlikely that the AI is going to start doing that. Not until we get a chat GPT type AI attached to Bannerlord. Until that time, it's pretty much going to be, I don't want to say easy, but it's going to be relatively common for us to abuse the AI, exploit their weaknesses, and destroy them. Alright, I'm doing reconnaissance right now. I just want to see what we're dealing with. They got a nice packed up group there. It's not real optical or optimal. It's certainly optical. You want to have your units spread out. Unless you're dealing with a unique situation, all your archers being jammed up together is basically the worst thing they can do, and that's what they're doing. I mean, theoretically, they're protected, right? They got infantry in front of their archers, but none of their fucking archers can shoot. So, we're going to spread our units out here. You can see I have my second cav here blocking their cav. So their guys are charging in here, and you can see their momentum just died. In fact, they literally pulled back. As soon as they hit it, they're like, we can't charge through there, and they're already heading the other way. I'm going to clobber some guys here with my low-level, high-impact Tier 1 hammer. Alright, now I've got infantry pegged up against the second cav here, and so these guys can be told to charge, right? When their cav charges in, they lose the momentum. Now our infantry charges them, and the enemy doesn't have any crossbow here shooting at us. So we're going to take advantage of that. We're going to move quickly and get units pressed on the ridge, sort of overlooking where the enemy is, while we fight off their cav. The enemy's really forming what I like to call defeat formation here. Like this is a pun on the American football victory formation, where they go into like a kneeling formation when the game is assured of victory. In this case, the enemy is assuring defeat by assuming this fucking defeat formation. Alright, so first and third, those are infantry divisions I like to pair together. The third has a lot of guys that don't have shields. The enemy's cav is kind of running through here, but mostly they're getting shot off their horses. Alright, and we have 3 different archer divisions in different locations, so they can't really even block all the different arrows that are flying in on them. The enemy's right over the edge of this ridge. So we're going to press infantry right up on here. And what I'd like to do is start to get archers with good line of sight on their units. Okay, so they're charging over the valley. So what are we going to do here? We're going to kite, right? We'll send the first into a square, and we're going to pull these units to the side, hoping that the enemy engages that square. Meanwhile, I've got my cav right here. We're going to charge right through their archers and basically chase these guys off. Now, we're killing some of them too, but the main reason we're doing this is to chase them out of this temporary fight. We want our archers to be able just to lay waste to their units here. We're pulling the square down the hill, which gives all these archers better line of sight. You can see them just annihilating the enemy. And now we can bring in our other infantry divisions to the other side of the enemy, right? They're totally infatuated with the square. Our 3rd, 6th, and 8th Corps is now following me. The enemy's starting to divide, but of course they're getting shot to pieces with arrows. And again, notice the enemy has no line of sight on us here, right? They've reverse sloped themselves out of the battle. Now our units swallow up the enemy here, right? The cav is charging. The 1st division is actually in a square. We can actually break them out. Well, they're not even really close to the battle. I'll just leave them there for defense. But the 3rd, 6th, and the 8th with that cav charge just immolated their infantry charging. Now I see reinforcements popping out over here on the left, so we're going to immediately move those archers back, start to position troops so that they're higher uphill and they can rake this infantry as they come in. And we're going to stay behind this ridge. This ridge here is protecting us from all these archers. You see, I can just duck underneath it. Can't see the archers. I can duck. They literally can't see me. Right? We're still raking them with arrows. You can see the death spam. The first infantry is now facing the enemy. We're gonna flank the enemy with the 3rd, 6th, and the 2nd cav is right here. Now that the enemy's bearing down on the enemy, we can have our first hold a shield wall, and all I want those guys to do is to hold the ground while the 3rd, 6th, and 8th barrel in on the enemy's side. Right, again, swallowing the enemy up. The death spam is almost entirely green. I mean, it's just literally a wave of green. And now these are low-level troops, right? We massacred the primary Valandian wave, so now they're down to recruits, and they didn't have any chance anyway, but once we pulled off that flanking maneuver, it was curtains. Alright, so they're definitely shooting. I could see just from the death spam that they were getting some shots off. Their archers finally, their crossbow finally came over the ridge. Our infantry's here, so we're just going to charge into these weak guys now, but I have sent the 1st infantry towards their crossbow division, right? We're going to try to occupy them. You can see there's infantry charging with their shields up towards their crossbow. I'm going to wade in here, but we're also going to send the 2nd Corps, our cav, and stick them right in the face of the enemy as well. This is a classic use of just a shield wall. I don't even want these cav attacking. I just want them going towards the enemy, holding their shield up. They're going to be distracting the enemy. They're going to be absorbing arrows. Meanwhile, we can go in here and dodge and mangle these fucking crossbow. Yeah, they're getting blasted around by my hammer. Trucked. Now that the enemy units are close, the infantry's closed in, now they can be told to charge. The rest of our units are probably closed in as well. The cav is now charging through, and it's an absolute destructive attack for the enemy here. Pound some crossbowmen over the head, and that is that. The Valandians are vanquished. You don't always get a situation when the enemy does a favor to you like that, but that was a huge favor. Them pulling their crossbow over the other side of the ridge where they literally couldn't see us. That was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. Napoleon would have said, you won't catch your enemy making this mistake twice. Well, unfortunately, the AI will make the same mistake twice. We killed their commander here of the siege. That's always nice, too, and we're going to take the rest of these soon-to-be beheaded nobles prisoner. They got some militia troops. We like to take militia into our army. In fact, our army is fully staffed, right? This is the first time, basically in this whole campaign, that we have 400 guys in our army. And that's because of the last episode. I don't want to spoil it, but we ran into a bunch of prisoners. And of course, that battle, we barely lost any troops, and we gathered in even more prisoners. Alright, so still fucking trying to make our way up to Varagos Castle. Non-stop attacks. That's our next objective. And again, we're trying this counterclockwise circular sweeping motion through this area, hoping eventually to expand the kingdom even further. Now, I have mentioned this part before on this Peasants Rebellion, that we are aware of peasants' history, right? We have a little advantage here that these peasants didn't have, and that we could look back on the hundreds or even thousands of years of oppression of tyrants and peasants' revolts, and sort of learn why they failed, learn what we can do to succeed. And one of the biggest one of those is moving. In this case, of course, we do want to have at least a couple strong citadels. I don't want to have, just all weak citadels and constantly move. That's just not going to work very well. But in an optimal world, what I would like to do is have 1 or 2 major citadels that have strong defensive forces. And then the rest of our units, we're going to sort of have a continuing rolling movement of troops, right? We don't want to stay static. We don't want to sit in one spot very long, because that's exactly how peasant revolts were destroyed by the oligarchies and by the aristocracies in the past 1,000 years, right? They would hem the peasants in. They would usually engage in bad faith negotiating, and then of course they would destroy the peasants. Now here, these guys are we're not going to accept peace. These guys here are sieging this castle, but the garrison has really whittled down their defense force. Now the garrison's about to fall, but fortunately we're arriving just in time. Now I want to look at this force just to see the strength of it. I've been trying to do this a lot just to kind of show you what we're up against. And look at this shit. 44 legionaries, 15 elite cataphracts. They even have 18 Britannian Fianchamps. It really is astonishing, the forces that we're fighting on a regular basis here. Now this this actually might be an ideal opportunity for a Killbox here. A Killbox in particular where we run the RTS mod. I haven't done a lot of instructional video here, but this side over here we can do major kiting. We could pull the enemy in. And I do want to mix in instructional tactics occasionally, even in this Peasants Revolt. We can do both. We can multitask here. We can role play that we're in a Peasants Revolt, and then we can also enact a Killbox using the RTS mod. The RTS mod, of course, we can fly over the battlefield, and that hopefully will give some of you viewers that have a hard time seeing the Killbox from the ground level. Hopefully that will help you see it and maybe emulate it in your own game. So Zuvan is now on autopilot. He's out there running around, and you can see our forces here. Now we have this blimp mode where we can effectively show you the enactment of this advanced tactic. Some people might call this an extremely advanced tactic. The idea here, though, is that we're going to pull their main infantry body in. It looks like 150 guys. I can't quite tell if that's 150 or 160 guys, but that's the bulk of their force here. Now we outnumber them 2 to 1, but as we just showed you, right, this force is stacked with tier 5 units. In fact, these are mostly tier 5 infantry. I see Battanian Fiend Champs, Legionaries, I see Veteran Falksmen, and of course they have Imperial Elite Cataphract coming up. So I have a Cav division here that we're going to be screening some, and I also have a horse division, a horse archer division that we'll use to screen some, and they're going to play strictly defensive roles in this process. Now, what is this process I'm talking about here? We have 3 primary ranged units, the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and the 8th division also has a mix of skirmishers and archers. What we want to do is suck in this very powerful infantry division here, lure them towards the center, and then once they're sort of within range of our javelins and archers, we're going to start spreading out our units in a wide crane formation. Sometimes it's a little bit of a combination of the tactics of Hannibal at the Battle of Cannae, and a little bit of a crane form tactic where you essentially widen your flanks and start to envelop the forces as they move in. So I'm moving the Cav here just to sort of help screen the enemy Cav. Over on that side we have the crossbow division. Of course, it's a mix of crossbow and archers, and effectively what we're doing here is as their infantry come in, that 145 elite troops, we don't want those legionaries and veteran Falksmen to reach our units, otherwise they'll do major damage to them. Here, this Cav division, again, is playing strictly defense. They're just trying to slow down some of the enemy heavy Cav that's barreling in. And this is the key, right? We are going to absolutely shoot these guys full of pins. They are going to look like a porcupine or a hedgehog or whatever. Choose your animal in nature that looks like they got shot with 100 arrows. That is our strategic goal here with this tactic. Now, one of the ways we're going to do that, of course, is getting units behind the enemy, right? These guys have shields. They're going to play very good defensive roles for their army. But you can't hold your shield to all 4 different directions, right? Now, some of them don't have shields. I see elite Manabliatons in there. That's the shock troops for the Imperials. Those guys are highly vulnerable to this strategy. But even the Legionaries eventually are gonna succumb to this kiting attack. Now, again, primarily what we want to make sure is none of their units reach us. Now, on this side, I have 2 infantry divisions, and those guys actually have no job other than to sort of attract attention and throw the occasional axe or polearm. I see Zuvan is getting butchered. Of course, the AI is like almost completely incapable. Player agent is dead. I hope that doesn't mean Zuvan died. That'll be disappointing. But obviously, the AI has no idea how to use Zuvan, the character I typically play. All right, so the vision here is the 8th. The enemy's moving in on the 8th. We pull these units back, right? The biggest key is to make sure that this infantry group, and now they're starting to form a shield wall for protection, they never get closer than about 40 or 50 feet from a unit. If they start to reach one of our units hand to hand, they will butcher them, right? These are elite Manabliatons, these are legionaries. Combined, they are absolutely lethal to these low-level troops that we have. Now look at over here what we have. The skirmishers are now behind the enemy. There's a Cav shield wall over there. That's the 2nd Corps, that 55 horses. Those guys are screening out enemy archer fire, and they're also sort of providing a barrier from heavy Cav devastating that division. Now the dance moves for this, right? I've done this so many times. It's basically like I'm a elite veteran of the Killbox waltz, right? This dance. This group of infantry here is just not going to be allowed to reach any of our units. Now it's even easier in RTS mode, and if you want to practice it, this is a pretty good way to do it. See, they're getting close to our 6th division here. We simply pull these guys back. Those guys peel back. You might lose the occasional guy like this dipshit who thinks he's, fucking macho man, like goading the enemy into attacking them. But now the enemy really is fucked. We have enemies wrapped all around them, and they're just not fast enough to even arrive at any of our units. Without cavalry support, these guys truly are dead men. Up here on this top, we have the 8th, and they're kind of approaching them, so we just back up. At this stage, I think anybody watching basically understands. The big key here, there's a couple prerequisites to the strategy. First, if the enemy has a huge amount of heavy cavalry, you will not be able to pull this off successfully. They'll simply truck your units, your vulnerable archers with heavy cav, and of course you will suffer great losses. The other component of this too is making sure that you have a strong concept of where your units are at all times. And maybe I get this from a military and fire, a career in the fire service. We do searches in the dark and whatnot. Our brains are pretty well tuned to sort of spatial awareness, where the wall is, where the exit door is, things like that. But I know where units are just at a glance. Now you can always light them up just by holding down an enemy unit, and it'll bring them up. But to do this correctly, you really need to have a strong understanding of those units. Now eventually we're going to surround and destroy this group with melee. And that's simply because we're using all of our arrows and javelins up just to weaken them, right? They're very strong units, they're heavily armored, and so at this stage, even though they're weakened, they're not dead yet. So the coup de grace here, where the finishing blast, if you don't speak French, actually I don't speak French. En français c'est beau préféré. That's about all I know. We are going to surround and massacre this force here with all the units at the same time, right? So these infantry units are being brought in over here. These guys are told to charge. And at this stage, these legionary and Western Empire forces are probably begging for death, right? Can you imagine how tormenting this must have been for them? They can't reach their targets, and when they finally do, they're withered down, and they just get this surrounding destructive force. It just looks like piranhas coming in for the finishing kill here, right? And the screen is entirely green up in the upper right-hand corner, right? The enemy is annihilated. And it looks like witnessing that massacre there, that startling grouping of tactics there has unnerved, has spooked the enemy archers. They honestly look like they're fleeing. And of course, we're turning our wrath on them now. We've been largely ignoring them in this battle. And now it's time to finish their asses too. Now over here, I was doing so many things at once, I can't talk that fast, otherwise you won't be able to understand me, right? I need to be able to talk at a rate that you can actually understand me. But what I did is I dragged the 5th Division, this archer and crossbow division, to flank the enemy, anticipating their withdrawal, right? So these guys already are beelining like a firing squad the enemy units that are retreating here. You see these dipshits are picking up arrows while they're getting shot. And we have heavy cav pursuing them. This battle is already effectively over. Their morale is crushed. Their vanguard got massacred. Now we could have probably F1, F3'd this battle because of the fact that we almost had twice the number of troops as the enemy here. But because they had legionaries, because they had elite Manabliatons, I'm going to take control of this gal here just to sort of finish this battle out. Had we just F1, F3'd, I promise you, we would have taken a couple hundred casualties. In this Peasants' Revolt, especially with the weakly armored guys, and they suffer a higher death rate because they're lower tiered units, we can't afford to just barrel in, and not give a fuck about casualties, right? We want to minimize casualties, and the other purpose of this, they're now fleeing, we're going to cut down a few of these insolent fucks. The other purpose, of course, for not just the channel, but this campaign, as we cut down their Eagle standard here, is to show you tactics, right? We're going to try to show you advanced battlefield tactics, and we're going to try to give instructional sides of it like that so that you can hopefully emulate it, copy it, replicate it in your own game, right? We'll get a little archery practice here. I haven't really done a lot of bow work lately. I should probably practice a little bit more with the RTS mod. Zuvan got dropped, of course, because the incompetent AI was running around with them, and some of these guys here can be the last units to get shot to death in this episode. All right, so a highly efficient massacre here of 400 and something very powerful Western Empire forces, and look at this: we suffered 28 casualties and only 6 deaths. Against a highly upgraded elite unit. Look at the mounted skirmishers, got 5 kills and lost 41. I mean, they just suffered a devastating ratio of losses here. And so this is basically the epitome of a massacre, and the stats bear that out, right? Even though we outnumbered them 2-1 again, given the quality of our units, it could have been much worse had we not enacted some tactics there. We could pick up a few units here. We're not going to be picking up any of the tier 5 units. That's, you know, or 6 units. That's sort of part of the game rules of our campaign here. But we're certainly welcoming in some prisoners that we might be able to recruit. And look at our army. 405 guys out of 399. We're in good shape right now, right? We have, for the first time in a long time in this campaign, we have a full army group. And this is as full as it's going to get, right? We are at our capacity. Our companions are at or near capacity. So 800 is the largest army we're going to have in this series. This guy, it looks like they were a handful of the retreating troops that ran out of here. We'll try to track them down. I just saw that Amitatis is under siege already. It looks like it said Porev. I think it's the Sturgeons. Right, so the onslaught continues, right? We expected this. We did load these 2 towns up, these 2 cities, with food, so they should be able to withstand a siege for a while, and both of them now have decent-sized garrisons. I don't think I'm going to be able to chase this guy down here. My units are just kind of standing there like they're celebrating victory still. I think we'll take this opportunity, since we're close to Sinope, to gather some reinforcements, to dump off some food here, right? We can gather even more troops. I'm going to be able to put these troops either into Sinope or add these to our companions, right? We've been starving for troops most of this campaign, and this is kind of like our first opportunity here to really fill our bellies. You can see there's only 340 something at Amitatis, so I'm going to have to go down there and defend yet again. Now, Sinope has a nice defense force, right? Sinope is going to be able to withstand an attack for a while here. I'm not actually running around with my companions right now because I'm trying to deter them from doing more raiding, right? So my companions are acting as like heat-seeking missiles. Look at all these troops. This is beautiful. So we now have a very stacked army, and we're going to be able to start dumping off a lot of these troops into this city. Now, the cities occasionally will have tier 5 units as well. That's because even if you have nothing to do with it, units will upgrade while they're in a city. We probably will allow that for this campaign. At least I'm not going to micromanage it every single time. You know, we're not allowing ourselves any tier 5 units in our field army, and that or 6, of course, and that of course will make tactics much more difficult to pull off, right? Not just more difficult to pull off, but it'll make tactics a little dicier, but also a little bit more necessary to win battles, right? We're just not going to win toe-to-toe against very stacked armies, in many cases being outnumbered. Okay, so there's a huge amount of sheep here, so it's more mutton stew for dinner. We're going to massacre all these sheeps, sheeps, whatever the word is. We're going to sell some stuff here, gain a little bit of gold, but at this stage, gold's irrelevant. We're actually profitable even with this size of force we have, and that's part of the reason is that we have companions that seem to be giving us money, but also, of course, our army is cheap, right? We have a bunch of militia. These guys are happy to work for beans. They work for the minimum wage, and they're thrilled about it. So we're going to massacre these sheep, just like before, the role-playing element of it, right? We line up 2 lines. There's a block. There's an axeman. There's a couple axemen at both blocks, and we have the nobles lined up on the sheep on the other side, and we basically take the sheep through, mow them down, start spitting them all. You know, we're going to roast them, have a little roasted sheep for dinner here. Load up our town full of food. We'll dump some food into the stash as well. And then, you know, basically let the nobles know that if any of those guys get even slightly out of line, right? If one of their cousins or brothers raids one of our villages, they can join the sheep in the next line. Just a little housekeeping here. I want to have a good amount of party speed, right? We've got 3.8 speed. That's very sufficient. I'm dumping off some extra horses here. We're now using Sinope as our capital, as our rebellious capital, and so we're starting to leave some extra supplies here. Now, I want to have some meat and grain as part of our army, both to feed us, but also to take down to Amitatis, because it's essential now that we feed these guys that are being sieged down here, right? They will be either starving or on the edge of starving, and we're going to bring them a whole bunch of barbecued mutton, and I promise you our poll ratings go way up, right? We'll certainly be higher than any of our 2 disastrous presidential options. What a fucking disaster the American political system is. I won't get political as far as choosing sides. I can just tell you, though, it's a very dark place in our country's history here. We're being subverted by Iran. We're being subverted by Russia and China. These countries want to show other countries that democracy has failed. And so they are getting us to fight with each other, just like the Roman Empire. Holy fuck, we got a problem here. This is a huge Britannian force in our way. All right, we're going to go around. We can't fight this, at least not without any chance of getting down to Amitatis to defend. Let me look at the size. Yeah, and it's a potent force, too. 80 fucking... Yeah, we're going to have to go around. 62 wildlings, 66 oathsworn. Who knows how many Britannian fiend champs. Undoubtedly, they're coming to siege either Sinopa or Veragos. But I have this little alternate route down to Amitatis. We're going to take this. I wish there was an alternate route to our political system, right? Nobody wants to vote, really, for either of these political candidates. And I apologize if you love one of them. But the bottom line is their ratings are both shit. Basically, most of the country would rather see different candidates. But it's like walking into a bar and there's two chicks to date, right? One of them has no teeth, and the other one is, well, we'll leave any of the overweight jokes out of it. But let's just say they're not delectable candidates, but we have no choice, right? Like, this is our only option. On top of that, of course, the media has basically tricked everybody into thinking that the other side are all idiots and out to destroy the country. It's basically a disaster. I won't go too far off on my soapbox here, but the American political system has been essentially destroyed with the help of social media. All the fake shit that's on social media, all the divisiveness that's plumbed into it, right? Facebook and these companies, Jesus Christ, another huge army. These companies, social media companies, even YouTube, they benefit from any kind of emotion that makes people angry. That draws more engagement. More engagements, more ads. The more outrage, the more fear that they can stoke, the better, right? People watch. That's why channels like Fox News and MSNBC are so popular, because they're political. I want to attack this guy, but we really can't. I'm going to have to let him just go up to Veragos Castle. So these news medias, they basically just, they feed on the fact that people are afraid and angry to get them to watch so that they can make money. Meanwhile, the American and probably other countries, Western democracies, their systems are starting to fall apart because of all the divisiveness, because of all the fake news. All right, enough of that tangent. I've had a few guys that say they like to hear the tangents. I'm sort of a political philosopher as well. I love geopolitics and understanding why things are where they are. That's why I study history, right? If you study history, you can understand this sort of thing. There was a similar clash of parties between the Whigs and the Tories in the 1700s that was literally called the Rage of Party. And that's kind of what America's experiencing right now. They've tricked us into thinking it's us versus them when we're really all just Americans. We might have subtle differences on what we believe that means, but ultimately Russia, China, Iran, they have used social media to pit each other, to pit Americans against each other, right? They're like kicking dogs in a cage in the ribs and then setting them loose on each other and laughing. All right, so the Sturgeon force is pretty tough, right? They have at least, it looks like about 130 or 140 Tier 5 units, but spoiler alert, we're going to massacre these boys here. You've already seen us destroy a larger force with a smaller defending force here at Amitatis. As you've seen, Amitatis is an outstanding citadel to defend, right? This castle, or this city, I sort of hand-chose this, hand-picked it. As soon as I saw these walls, this setup, this courtyard, I decided that this was going to be a very good opportunity here for us to defend, right? This might even be, if we get hemmed in this Peasants' Revolt, this might be our Alamo. The Alamo, for those who are overseas viewers, was a fort that a bunch of obstinate Texans defended to the last against an angry Mexican army of like 15 times their size. And they tried to defend this church/fort to the very end, and of course, unfortunately, they weren't successful. Hopefully, our fate is different from theirs. Of course, all of the remaining folks at the Alamo that were captured and/or surrendered, they were all summarily executed by the Mexican general. I can't remember his name. He was rather hated after that, and that effectively was one of the events that led to the Mexican-U.S. war. Very bad decision to execute surrendering troops. Not that Americans haven't ever done that. I won't go into that either, but war is hell That's why we're playing Bannerlord. That way we don't have to enact any war. We can just kill digital pixels, behead some nobles, and get our bloodlust on without actually harming anybody. In fact, we're entertaining people by beheading people. All right, we may fly off into a few more tangents like that. I am going to show most significant sieges in this campaign. I just don't want to gloss over stuff. But as I've already told you, this siege is over. I mean, it'll be ironic if we lose, but look at the power bar. This is like one of the first battles in a siege where we actually are favored. So I'm just going to get a little practice here with my javelins. They're bringing up a hapless siege tower over here. Even if it reaches us here, we're going to be able to absolutely skewer it and blow it up with these little medieval grenades that we're going to be able to pick up. So I may, again, run off on a few more tangents here. If you want to hear more tangents from me, let me know. I've had guys say that they actually think I should have a podcast where I just sort of freelance rant about various different things, whether it's the political system or the disastrous American food supply system full of chemicals and fucking processed crap. If you want to hear more rants, now's your time to give me feedback, right? I may start introducing more of this into these episodes, and quite honestly, if you don't want to hear it, actually, I don't mind you saying that. Like, I'm not going to be upset. I don't know if I can hit these guys here. I probably have to blow this. Yeah, I got to blow this wall up first. Don't stand there, dude. You'll get smoked. You know, if you want to hear me sort of go on these little tirades about things that are fucked up, you know, I will have positive things to say sometimes, but to be perfectly honest, I'm a realist, and there's a lot of negative shit going on from the completely runaway capitalism in the United States that just runs the political system, to our disastrous social media that just profits from fake news and fucking tyranny and chaos within a country. Now, if you want to hear more of that, now's your time to tell me. Alright, so we're going to make our way towards the center of the keep here. It looks like their forces are sort of concentrating towards the center, and we're going to look for some of those bombs. Of course, part of the reason they're concentrating is their ram is dead, right? Our excellent catapult fellows over here, they're avenging these poor fallen militia. They obliterated the enemy's ram, and now the enemy is concentrated in the center here. And if those exploding bombs are in the same tower, this siege is going to end very quickly. I don't want to call it an exploit, but the developer who put these bombs right above me here, I'd give him a big hug, because we're going to be able to defend this city to the very last. It'd be interesting if we have like a mega siege here at some point. I don't know if that's how this campaign is going to play out. Hopefully we win, all right? We're trying to win this campaign. We're not trying to we're not hoping to end like the guys at the Alamo. But if we do have to make a final stand, I'm already envisioning coming here, right? This is going to be like our Helm's Deep. If things are getting bad and the orcs are pouring over in legions over the horizon, we're going to run to this keep for safety, because I think this can be defended very successfully against large forces. I will start stockpiling food here at some point. I did that just because I want to basically maneuver here. I don't have an obvious target for those exploding bombs, so we're going to look for a better opportunity here. Yeah, like this is what I want. These big packed on here sturgeons, they can, 15 guys at once we can blow up. Alright, so Amitatis, we talked about that. This is going to be probably the last citadel that we defend to the death. Now, Sinopa has a good defensive setup as well, but if I've analyzed both of them, I would say this one is like an 8.5 or a 9 for defense, whereas Amitatis is like a 7. Right? This is just simply better. These bombs being in these locations, a catapult here conveniently allowing me to explode like 80 of their guys on the ladders before they even come up. Look, they're all dead. I don't even have a target for these bombs. Reinforcements are pouring in, but they might as well come in slitting their own throat, because they have no chance of success here. Look at the courtyard. The courtyard is packed with like 150 archers, and even though they're militia, you get shot with 150 poorly aimed arrows, and some of them are going to find your throat. Alright, so now we're going to just basically fire some bombs down here. I thought the enemy would be packed up there. Let's take a peek out here. Pardon me. Let me see. Here they come. Our next victims are piling up underneath the gatehouse here. These murder holes are actually pretty historically accurate. The one thing that I would say, they would typically either have boiling water or also boiling oil that they would dump on attackers, which, talk about brutal. I think we're going to be able to do a little alley-oop fucking shot over the top of our guys here. Wish me luck. Yeah, we took out a couple of our guys, but we definitely got like 15 of theirs. That's definitely worth it. All right, so the left is completely covered. The center is covered very well. Of course, the right, we know that their siege tower was blown up. As I said before, this castle siege is over. We can get some more targets practice here, try to kill these guys. But this siege, I don't know. I guess there would have to be some kind of incredibly unknown breach or something unexpected to occur for us to lose. Strategically, our plan in this episode, after we defend this, is to start marching, right? We want to march towards Rotai. We're going to start taking more cities. Now, we're already under siege, right? I'm probably going to lose Varagos Castle. Varagos Castle just gets sieged over and over again, and it has a small garrison. I just don't have the resources to put a lot of troops there. Or at least more accurately, I don't feel like I can afford to put a lot of troops there. So Varagos Castle is going to be a little bit of a sacrifice. We're going to let it go. I mean, look, there's 2 piles of bombs here, and the troops just pouring right underneath. I mean, a 6-year-old could fucking defeat the Sturgeons with this keep set up. So after we defend this, we will probably head... I mean, Rotai makes the most sense. It's a city kind of to the west of here on the map, and the nice thing is it's relatively close to both Amitatis and to Sinaopa, right? These 3 cities being close to each other makes it relatively easy for me to defend, get to these different locations, and then of course put up a defense or get inside to stop attackers. Obviously, we can't go like a huge distance to like Ortesia or Carbensith or something like that. We have to keep our defense local. But since these three cities are relatively close to each other, that's our next probable target. I'm going to try to give you strategic insight as I'm playing as well. We'll do a little bit of a combination, but at this stage, I don't need to explain to anybody what I'm doing here, right? I basically have Sturgeons waiting to be killed en masse. I mean, that was like the whole fucking screen, every guy died. What was that, like 30 or 35 Sturgeons? I'm actually surprised they haven't routed yet. Right? These guys, the enemy typically routes based on a kill ratio. In fact, there they go. If you kill enough of the enemy and they don't get kills, it destroys their morale and the enemy takes off, right? In this instance here, we must have killed 10 to 1 to what they killed. So 70, well, not quite 10 to 1. We killed, 450 and they killed 70. So it's about 8 to 1, 7 to 1. All right, so again, we're looking for any prisoners that we can upgrade, but at this stage, my prisoner count is pretty full. In fact, I'll probably take a little momentary break and remove some of those prisoners. I am going to be doing a few things behind the scene because I don't think you guys are going to really want to watch every little tiny mechanic of the game. Me putting equipment on guys and selling loot at this town and slaughtering some cows over here. I will try to spare or fast forward through a lot of that stuff as much as possible. But this is a little bit of a campaign pilot, I guess you could say. Now, I am already playing a campaign, but this campaign I'm showing sort of the inner guts of the game. I'm showing more details, and I want to know what you guys think about that. If you want more details, I can show you all the little tiny intricacies, and I presume more you guys would presume to see less details. So let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you think about this Peasants Revolt, right? We march on, and I will talk to you friends next time.